Chapter 9, Daniel. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. I ate no pleasant bread, neither came flesh or wine in my mouth, neither did I anoint myself at all, till 3 whole weeks were fulfilled. Then said Gabriel unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from the first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand, and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard. And I am come for thy words. But the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. Daniel 10 verses 2 to 3 and 12 to 13. Daniel is another perfect example of this process of sanctification through the 3 stages that Jesus outlined. Daniel was one of God's chosen people, of the royal seed, and yet found himself in Babylon. Egypt typifies the world before God calls us, but Babylon typifies the world after we've been called. Here we see God's people in captivity. It may seem strange to us that God should tell Israel not to try and fight Babylon or to escape, but to stay there and to serve it. Jeremiah 29 verses 4 to 7. And Jesus' instructions are no different from this. For he does not tell us to escape the world. On the contrary, he tells us to be in the world and to come under authority to the governing bodies, for God has ordained them. Nevertheless, he did say that we are not of the world. This means that our values and thinking are different from the politics, fashion, desires and dictates of the world. In Babylon, the first thing that Daniel and his 3 friends did when they found themselves in Babylon was to make a decision to be different. And this difference was not just in their thinking or religion, but in their lifestyles. It is much too easy to believe that you believe without it affecting your lifestyle. Daniel and his friends chose not to eat the king's meat. I'm sure that the king's meat was good and wholesome, but they would have had to defile themselves by eating unclean foods such as pork, which was forbidden under the law of Moses. They chose to eat no meat at all and instead asked for simple foods, pulses that were conducive to a lifestyle of self-denial and fasting. Daniel prayed openly 3 times a day. The Bible clearly records that Daniel fulfilled the first stage of denying himself. He was in the world, but he made a decision to not be part of it. A clear message. There is a very clear message which can be deduced from this. One day we will be living as kings with Jesus himself when he comes to reign on this earth. But until his kingdom comes on earth, we are instructed to live as pilgrims and aliens. A pilgrim cannot live as a king, and a king would never live as a pilgrim. It is up to us to decide which life we want to live now. Our future position when Jesus sets up his kingdom on earth rests upon that decision. Daniel also fulfilled the second stage, crucifying the flesh, for the Bible records that he fasted regularly. I do not know of any greater spiritual exercise than fasting for dealing with our old nature. It is a commandment of Jesus in his Sermon on the Mount, and one of the 3 activities he said must be done in secret. Daniel was also a man of much prayer, which is another of these secret activities that Jesus teaches us in Matthew 6, 1 to 18. True intercession. What were the consequences of coming through these 2 stages for Daniel? Power with God in intercession and great revelation. The angel Gabriel was personally dispatched from God to give Daniel tremendous revelations with the message that he was greatly beloved of God. Daniel's prayer of intercession resulted in God's people returning to the promised land, their own kingdom. By this, Daniel was destroying the devil's work, undoing the work of Nebuchadnezzar, who is a type of the Antichrist. It was not Daniel who fought the devil or his angels. By humbling himself with prayer and fasting, he allowed the real battle to be fought in the heavenlies between angels, Michael and the devils, the prince of Persia. Daniel's humility gave a legal right for the battle to commence and to be won. It was not won by Daniel, but by spiritual powers on both sides. The battle is always the Lord's.